Well, that baseball game was very reminiscent of the Colorado Rockies' approach to the trade deadline. Boring, dull, disappointing. I guess it wasn't so boring, right? The Rockies ended up having a 6-2 lead at some point in this game, ended up blowing it tonight to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Your final score tonight 10-7. Disappointing game for the Rockies, disappointing times for the Rockies as they get off to a rough start after a day off with a 10-7 loss to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. All right, let's break it all down on tonight's episode of your Locked On Rockies POSTCAST. Let's get into it, folks.
You are Locked On Rockies POSTCAST, powered by Mile High Sports. Part of Locked On Sports Denver on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your Locked On Rockies postcast. Hope everybody is hanging in there on this Tuesday night, right around 10:30 here in the Mile High City. A disappointing game, to say the least, for the Colorado Rockies, as they had a lead in this one despite some pretty bad pitching throughout the course of this game, but unable to hang on. This game was very reminiscent of what I like to call a Coors Field Classic, where it's just like, lead changes, bad pitching, tons of offense, whatever it might be. I actually think it's kind of fitting, being that the opponent that they faced off against tonight was the Los Angeles Angels, who, in a way, kind of feel like the American League's version of the Colorado Rockies. Now, stick with me. Actually, we'll save some of those thoughts here for just a moment. But if you want to follow me on social media, you can do so at Media by AP. And make sure to subscribe to this brand new Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel, so that way you never miss an episode of your Locked On Rockies postcast. We've also got a ton of stuff in the works for football season with the Buffs coming up. They're going to be a major talking point. I've been at Broncos camp for like the last 4 days, or the last 4 work days at least. So we'll have some fun content on the channel here as well as it pertains to your Denver Broncos. So make sure to smash that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of what's coming down on this channel. Not just your Locked On Rockies postcast, because there's going to be a ton of new content coming up here in, honestly, probably about a month or so, maybe even less now, with football season on the horizon. So appreciate you guys for doing that. And today's episode of your Locked On Rockies postcast is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Okay, my comparison about the Rockies and the Angels, and why the Angels kind of feel like the American League version of the Colorado Rockies. I guess the primary difference between the two is the Angels play in one of the most prominent media markets in the country. I spent a majority of, majority of my childhood growing up in the Los Angeles area, believe it or not. More friends with Dodger fans and whatnot, LA County as opposed to Orange County, which is obviously where the Angels reside and whatnot. But big difference in market between Los Angeles and Colorado. But the similarity to me is in the dysfunction of the organizations. You're talking about an Angels team that, when was they last won the World Series in 2002. I think they've only been to the playoffs probably a handful of times in the time that they've had a guy like Mike Trout. And I know Mike Trout's not playing right now, but I believe also Mike Trout's only played in like something like one playoff game in his career. And that was because they made it as a wild card all the way back in like 2012. But, just total organizational dysfunction. And that's why I'm not too surprised by the outcome of this game, because it's two dysfunctional organizations playing against each other. And it's also it's funny how both of these teams were relatively quiet on the trading block, with the trade deadline rapidly approaching. Obviously that passed today, but I don't know. I just feel like when I think of like who are the worst teams in the American League over the last 10 plus years, the Angels usually come to mind. And maybe I don't want to say the worst, but disappointing, kind of like head-scratching teams, if that makes sense. Because, look, the Angels have obviously, been the center of attention in years past with a guy like Mike Trout, who for a majority of his career has been the best baseball player in the sport, is going to go down as one of the all-time great baseball players as an individual. It's a shame he has no accolades really outside of the individual stuff to kind of show for it. Obviously, when the Angels had Shohei Ohtani, they were, on the highlight reels on ESPN and Fox and all the sports outlets, on a pretty much 24/7 basis during baseball season. But all things considered, the Angels are one of the more frustrating, disappointing franchises across the sport right now. And I feel like, when you think of, again, who are some of the worst or most disappointing teams in the American League, the Angels usually come to the top of mind. And I think when you ask yourself that same question about the National League, even if you ask someone unbiased, the Rockies probably come to mind, if they come to mind at all, because not many people like to pay attention to the Rockies because 9 out of 10 seasons they appear to be irrelevant. But again, I just thought it was interesting how this game played out tonight, how it all kind of shook out between two, for lack of a better phrase, bottom feeding teams across Major League Baseball. But again, the final score tonight, 10-7. The Angels improved to 47-60. And that's the crazy part, is the Angels are actually essentially 10 games better than the Colorado Rockies at 47-60. The Rockies at 38-70. So, it has been a rough go around for both of these teams this season. I'm sure it's a lot more. The Rocky fan, I think, was able to kind of anticipate that, leading into this year. The Angel fan, I'm sure, is accustomed to the letdown, but it's just, a tale as old as time, it appears, with these two organizations. But, the big takeaways in today's game: one, Brenton Doyle has to play every single day. I know that the Rockies were giving him he ended up pinch hitting in this game. But I do know that the Rockies, I heard something on the TV broadcast that they were just trying to give him a little extra rest, maybe dealing with some lingering, nagging injuries and whatnot. Brenton Doyle needs to play every single day, because if you're a regular listener of this Locked On Rockies postcast, heck, if you are just a fan of the Rockies, you probably pick up on this as well. The only chance, like the recipe for success for the Rockies to win these ball games, is when Brenton Doyle's playing well and Ezequiel Tovar is playing well, specifically on offense. The defense is great with guys like Tovar and Doyle, but when those two guys are able to, get some base hits, drive in some runs, it just does a lot to help get this Rockies offense going. And so Brenton Doyle did not start the game tonight, but that's one of my major takeaways, is Brenton Doyle needs to play every day if he's able to. Obviously, if he's really hurt or if he's, pretty banged up, give him the day off, whatever it might be. But he was good enough to pinch hit tonight. It ended up playing the last few innings for the Rockies. Should have probably been in there from the jump. And look, does Brenton Doyle playing all 9 innings tonight make a big difference? Probably not. But why not play Brenton Doyle when him alongside with Ezequiel Tovar are, the two guys, the two most reliable guys in your lineup on a game in and game out basis? So that's priority number one, is make sure Brenton Doyle's in that lineup for just about each and every game. But beyond that, just a disappointing outcome for the Rockies. Like I said, they were up 6-2 at one point in this ball game, ended up losing 10-7. 7 hits tonight for the Rocks. The Angels just kept piling them on as the game progressed. 14 base hits for Los Angeles tonight. That's how they generated their 10 runs. And the Angels end up scoring in 5 of the 9 innings played today. Obviously, they don't hit in the bottom of the 9th inning with that lead. But when you're given, it's one thing to consolidate the runs to 1 or 2 innings, right? It's the big inning. You hear that all the time on the TV broadcast. Make sure to avoid the big inning, right? Give them a run here, run there, whatever it might be. The Angels had a number of quote-unquote big innings tonight. They scored 2 runs there in the bottom of the first inning. They added 2 more runs there in the bottom of the third inning, and then their highest scoring frame of the night came in the bottom of the 4th inning, where they scored 3 runs on their own there as well. So multiple, I guess not like one massive spillover inning where the Angels scored 5 or 6 runs in the frame, but, kind of like death by paper cuts for the Rockies today, as Cal Quantrill was not very good for the Rockies today. The bullpen was even worse. And look, I don't want to, I saw some fans on Twitter, blasting Justin Lawrence. Like, how's this guy still on a major league roster? I don't know. They mentioned on the TV broadcast in April through the beginning of April to about the middle portion of May, was a really serviceable relief pitcher for the Rockies. Has also been in years past, but the last couple of seasons for Justin Lawrence have been anything but productive for him. And, the guys were harping on this in the TV broadcast as well. The problem with Justin Lawrence is the command and the number of uncompetitive pitches that he throws throughout his outings. I mean, there's just a number of times where, it's one thing when you're not getting the calls, or, maybe you're an inch or two outside, right? And you can't stick the zone. But there's just a lot of these pitches that come out of the hand of Justin Lawrence that are just absolutely non-competitive, where the hitter is able to pick up that not only is that going to be a ball, but it's going to be a ball 3 feet outside. And so it's just, a lot of non-competitive at bats when Justin Lawrence is in the game. But I think it was a combination tonight. Obviously, the Rockies are able to score 7 runs, but the pitching, unfortunately, unable to hold up for them. And it was a slog tonight, folks. Just one of those, unfortunately, classic Rockies games where the starting pitching and the bullpen combined, no good whatsoever. I mean, the pitching, regardless of the 7 runs, even if the Rockies had scored, 8, 9 runs in this game, it wouldn't have mattered. Just because that's how bad this pitching was here tonight. So, all right, let's hit our first break. When we come back, we'll continue along with the conversation. Let's dive into that pitching. Cal Quantrill struggled. We talked a little bit about Justin Lawrence, but we'll take a look at the rest of the Rockies bullpen, who are down a couple of arms because a couple of the moves that the Rockies did end up making at the Major League Baseball trade deadline, or ahead of the deadline, rather, I should say, did involve a couple of relief pitchers. So we'll save some trade deadline discussion for the end of the show as well. But let's hit that break, come back, and continue along with our conversation as the Rockies lose tonight to the Los Angeles Angels by a final score of 10-7. Stick with us. Back in just a few minutes right here on your Locked On Rockies postcast. All right, you guys, and let me tell you about our friends over at Supply House, because you're going to want to get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert service and industry-leading service, get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business, and talk to a real person every single time. I cannot state how much I love that from our friends over at Supply House. It seems like in this day and age, you're always dealing with a computer. Now artificial intelligence is kind of becoming the norm for customer service. Not with our friends over at Supply House. They're going to take great care of you, and you're going to be able to talk to a real person every single time. Plus, pros in the skilled trades can earn a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Be sure to check them out, guys. Supplyhouse.com. Let them know that Locked On Rockies sent you, and get on it. If you need anything that involves plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies, our friends over at Supply House have you covered. All right, welcome on back into your Locked On Rockies postcast. I am your host, Aniello Piro. You can follow me on social media at Media by AP, and make sure to subscribe to that brand new Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of your Locked On Rockies postcast, and you don't miss what is coming up here on the channel, because it is going to be exciting with football on the horizon and basketball not too far behind it from there. But so make sure to subscribe to that Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel, and also check out the standard Locked On Rockies podcast with my guy Paul Holden. I know he's got a variety of thoughts about the current state of the team, the trade deadline. So if you want some more in-depth discussion about the fight in Colorado Rockies, be sure to check out your Locked On Rockies podcast. And after the games, come on over here for your Locked On Rockies postcast, which is what you're listening to right now. But 10-7, your final score tonight is the Rocks lose to the Los Angeles Angels. Talked about how I think there's some parallels between the two organizations there in the first segment. But let's get into the pitching tonight, because the Rockies only end up using 4 total pitchers in this one. But really everybody, I guess with the exception of Peter Lambert, who was fine in his relief role, just struggling at some point or another in this one. Cal Quantrill tonight, who's been a little up and down for the Rockies, had a couple of good starts there to end July, but now appears to have unfortunately reverted back to form where we saw him for majority of July. He finishes with 3 2/3 innings pitched tonight, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And it's unfortunate because, as we had mentioned, the Rockies jumped out to a 6-2 lead there after the first 2 innings of play. Ryan McMahon doing his thing as well. It just, absolute crickets for the Rockies offense for the most part outside of those first 2 innings. They had an additional run there in the 7th. I believe that was an Ezekiel Tovar solo shot. Why don't I confirm that for you real quick? Yep, and Ezequiel Tovar solo shot there is 18th home run of the season. So you do love to see that. And again, that piggybacks off my thought from the opening portion of the show, which is make sure Ezequiel Tovar and Brenton Doyle play every single day, because I know while Tovar did his part tonight, the Rockies didn't win the game. But when those two guys are on, all you're going to do is increase the likelihood that you're at least going to be competitive in these games and give yourself a chance to win. But it was just disappointing across the board from the Rockies. And I was at the gym, just finishing up my workout and all that kind of stuff as this game was starting up. And, I actually ended up doing a little fist pump there because of how the Rockies ended up starting this game. Chris Bryant drives home a run with a sacrifice fly there in the top of the first inning. Brendan Rodgers rips his 17th double of the season. Shortly thereafter, that brings home a run. Rockies go up 2-0. And then obviously the Angels end up tying it up there in the bottom half of the first inning with a Tyler Ward RBI single, which scored 2 runs. But then the Rockies are able to pile on 4 additional runs there in the top of the second inning. Ezequiel Tovar sac fly brings a run home to re-give the Rockies a 3-2 lead. And then Ryan McMahon, a guy that I thought the Rockies should at least entertain trading, proven his value here for the Rockies tonight as he blasts a 3-run home run, his 16th home run of the season, barely got over the wall there in left field. But that put the Rockies up 6-3 at that, or 6-2, excuse me, at that point in the ball game. And if you're Cal Quantrill, that's all you can ask for as a starting pitcher is the opportunity to go out there and have some run support and try to settle into a little bit of a groove. And again, this is against the Los Angeles Angels here. It's not like they're going up against Murderers Row Yankees or the Houston Astros or the Kansas City Royals or some of the better teams, the Baltimore Orioles, the Red Sox, like who they just faced last week, who have actually been pretty bad since the All-Star break. But this was a pretty favorable matchup, I would imagine, for Cal Quantrill. And to see him go out there and just, for lack of a better phrase, just straight up blow this lead for the Rockies, and force the Rockies lineup to try to generate some more offense and have the bullpen try to keep you in this tight game. It's very disappointing. And again, I don't know. Let's get into this now since we're talking about Cal Quantrill. I know he's got a year of team control after this season, but why is Cal Quantrill still on the Rockies? They trade Nick Mears. They make a couple of moves there for some bullpen guys that they trade away and whatnot. Like, why the Rockies did not trade a single player that I would consider a part of their core this season. And the guys that I think were at least somewhat likely trade candidates were Cal Quantrill, Ryan McMahon, Brendan Rodgers, Elias Diaz. Those are the 4 that I think come to mind for me. And the Rockies end up hanging on to all of them. And, I guess if somebody had traded for Cal Quantrill and he put forth this effort tonight, you probably would feel pretty bad about that. You would not love that. But at the end of the day, like, what is Cal Quantrill giving this team right now? Because if this is the effort, if this is the performance that you're going to get from him, why not try to get some prospects out of them? Why not try to trade for some positions of need or whatever it might be? And I've said this time and time again on this show. The Rockies are not playing for. I mean, we know they're not playing for this season with 70 losses now. Yeah, 38-70 for the Rockies this season. We know that this season is out the window. That's the thing. Does anyone think the Rockies are legitimately contending for a postseason spot next year? I don't think so. So the question is, what is Cal Quantrill's role with this team? What is Cal Quantrill's long-term vision with this organization? Outside of being a stopgap starting pitcher who can give you some quality starts every now and again, but the body of work, is showing you that inconsistency. So, I'll kind of dive into the trade deadline in particular a little bit more here in the final segment of the program. But I'm just sitting here tonight, and it's like I'd much rather see somebody not named Cal Quantrill go out there and struggle tonight, because I think in my head, maybe you could have got something for Cal Quantrill and set yourself up for success. Now, maybe Cal Quantrill wants to be here, right? Maybe Cal Quantrill signs a contract extension this offseason. We know that Dick Monfort loves himself some flexible, affordable players. That's what Cal Quantrill is right now. So, it is what it is, I guess. But it's just one of those situations where he gave you nothing tonight. You probably could have got something for him on the open market. Maybe it's not quite what the Rockies had wanted. But I sit back here tonight and say, what is Cal Quantrill's vision with this organization? Because I don't know. And tonight, unfortunately, blowing that 6-2 lead for the Rockies. Quantrill tonight, 3 2/3 innings pitched, 9 hits, 7 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Peter Lambert cleaned up a little bit there for 2 and a third innings pitched out of the bullpen. Only gave up 1 hit tonight. His ERA still at 5.73 for the season. Also struck out 3. So nice to see the former Rocky starting pitcher, who's now been converted to a reliever, at least playing a little bit of a stopgap role there. And that's the thing, is looking at the 5th and 6th innings, which is when Peter Lambert was, pitching in this game at points, scoreless frames there for the Angels. So nice job from Peter Lambert tonight. Jake Bird, not great. And in his 1 inning of work, gives up 2 hits, 1 earned run, strikes out 1. It's a home run that he gives up in that one. And then we mentioned Justin Lawrence tonight, who is just awful, ends up hitting a batter tonight. 1 inning of work, 2 hits allowed, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. His ERA at 5.58 right now. And again, 14 total hits, allowed by the Rockies pitching staff tonight for 10 runs for the Angels, and just 8 innings of work here tonight. So disappointing. Unfortunately, not surprising with this Rockies club. The bullpen had been a little bit better as of late. The rotation had been a little bit better as of late, but you expect this regression to the mean, unfortunately. That's just the state of this Rockies club right now. We know that it's a struggle for them against really any ball club, but I think the reason, and that's the other thing, is they looked like just a little lackadaisical out there. Some mental errors. Was it Toglia and Jake Cave, letting a fly ball drop in between them at one point. Not the sharpest, cleanest base running, just a couple of clunky, sloppy plays in the field tonight from the Rockies. So I wouldn't say that they were very dialed in for this one. Let's see if they can bounce back, in the rest of the series here against the Los Angeles Angels. So we shall see. But the Rockies lose tonight in disappointing fashion, 10-7, despite the 7 runs from the offense. The bullpen and the starting pitching tonight was not good. All right, let's hit our final break. When we come back, we'll put a bow on the show. We'll talk a little trade deadline here and also take a look at what's coming up on tap tomorrow for the Rockies as their series with the Angels will continue. Stick with us. Back in just a few minutes right here on your Locked On Rockies postcast. All right, you guys, let me tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become a part of the Prize Picks community today. And now you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Get in on the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash with the summer games going on Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections, and you are locked in. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered each and every week, from lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Our friends over at Prize Picks have you covered with the promotions, guys. And also, Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy with our friends over at Prize Picks. Let them know that Locked On Rocky sent you, and good luck. Once again, folks, use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100 on the Prize Picks app. Okay, welcome on back into your Locked On Rockies postcast. The Rockies losing tonight to the Los Angeles Angels by a final score of 10-7. We talked about the starting pitching. We talked about the bullpen. We talked about the comparisons between the two franchises. And we'll see if the Rockies can bounce back here tomorrow. Looking ahead, it will be Kyle Freeland on the mound, who's coming off a pretty rough start in his last time out against the San Francisco Giants. Freeland is 2-4 with a 6.23 earned run average to pair with 42 strikeouts on the year. and he will go up against the Angels starter, who is Davis Daniel, a right-handed pitcher. He is 1-2 with a 5.82 earned run average and only 14 strikeouts this season. And when I see only 14 strikeouts, that makes me think he hasn't made many starts this year. And that is indeed correct. This will just be his fourth start of the season for Davis Daniel. Two first names in his for his first and last name. You got to love it there. His last time out came on July 8th against the Texas Rangers, and he struggled in that one. 3 2/3 innings pitched, 8 hits allowed, 7 earned runs, and his ERA is set at 5.82. So that was his last time out, and he's kind of declined in each of his starts. On the 27th of June, he had a great start against the Detroit Tigers. It's worth prefacing that. 8 innings shutout baseball for him there. Struggled against the A's there on July 3rd. I don't want to say struggled, but not his best stuff. 5 1/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 4 earned runs in that one. And then his most recent start coming on the 8th of July, which we just mentioned, 3 2/3 innings pitched. This against the Rangers, gives up 7 earned runs. So if the Rockies offense is in a good groove like they were tonight, you're going to be able to put the pressure on this guy tomorrow. So let's see if the Rockies are going to be able to take advantage of that. It is a 7:38 first pitch local time here in Colorado between the Rockies and the Angels. And as we mentioned, Kyle Freeland will be on the bump tomorrow for Colorado. His last time out, he really, really struggled. That came on July 26th against the Giants. Only 4 innings pitched for Kyle, 8 hits allowed in that one, 6 earned runs. But he did strike out at 8 in that one. So hopefully the strikeout numbers can stay up, and hopefully Kyle can just, kind of bounce back and put forth a quality start for the Rockies, because we know that they need that after tonight's awful outing from Cal Quantrill. But, okay, to close out the show, let's do a little trade deadline conversation. Got a couple of minutes left here. And as I said for a minute there in the second segment, I shouldn't say that I'm surprised, because we know that the Rockies are not an organization that is very frugal when it comes to kind of playing the open market and whatnot. But I am disappointed. And, I remember when I first started doing the Locked On Rockies postcast, I was talking about guys like Elias Diaz, among some others, that were like no-brainer trade candidates. And I know that Diaz got hurt there in the middle of June, which I think definitely hurt his trade stock a little bit. The catcher market was a little weird this trade deadline. But, I was looking for guys that don't have a long-term role with this team, because I still think the Rockies are at least, if not more, 2 years removed from at least being a thought about being competitive. I'm not even saying that they will be competitive in 2 years, but they're still that far off from being a team that, like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who kind of find themselves a little, let me pull up the wild card standings here. MLB wild card standings, and I've harped on this theme all year. There's 2 teams in the National League that have absolutely no chance of making the playoffs, and unfortunately one of them is the Colorado Rockies, which is just infuriating. Yeah, the Rockies are 19 and a half games out of a playoff spot. The Miami Marlins are 18 games out of a playoff spot, and then the gap shortens to 8.5 games. So a lot of these teams have fallen off, but I'm looking like the Pittsburgh Pirates are 2 games out of a playoff spot in 55 and 52. The Cardinals are 2 games out. The Giants are 5 games out, who they just played. The Reds are 5 games out as well. And so, like I said, I anything can happen. The Rockies are probably going to lose 100 games this year, but they're still a ways away from being a consistently competitive team in Major League Baseball. And what I mean by that is 500. I'm not saying they're going to be 10, 15, 20 games over 500. I don't know if we'll ever get there with this team, at least on a consistent basis, but they're still a ways away from that. So to see them hang on to just all of these guys that have a shelf life, am I really upset they didn't trade Ryan McMahon? No, but he's 29 years old. This is his best season. This is probably the highest his trade value will ever be, right? What is Ryan McMahon going to be at 33? When Tovar and Doyle and all these guys are, really hopefully coming to fruition? You got Zach Veen, you got, Condon and all these other guys in the farm system right now that are coming up and contributing. What is Ryan McMahon at 33 or 34 contributing to the Rockies? What is Elias Diaz, if he's here after the season, contributing to the Rockies? What is Cal Quantrill contributing to the Rockies in 3 years? Probably nothing. So, that's where I kind of just, in reflection on the trade deadline, to just see them, at least they did a couple of moves, dumping off some relief pitchers, getting back some prospects and whatnot. But, the fact that they didn't trade any one of their core players from this year's team, to me, is a little disappointing. And at the end of the day, if they didn't get fair market value or whatever, okay. We know that the Rockies tend to overvalue their players anyway, but you are going nowhere And holding on to a lot of these guys, I just don't think does much for you in the short term and in the long term. So we shall see what happens with the Rockies the rest of the season. Again, a par for the course kind of trade deadline for them as they hold on to virtually all of their core players from this year's squad. But what else do we expect? That's just kind of the way that the cookie crumbles with this organization. So, all right, that is going to do it for me tonight, though, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's program. The Rockies, unfortunately, losing to the Angels tonight by a final score of 10-7. They sit at 30-70 on the season at this point in time. But we'll be back at it again tomorrow night with another episode of your Locked On Rockies postcast, hopefully talking about a Rockies victory over the Angels. But that's it for me, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, and we'll talk to you guys mañana after the game between the Rocks and the Angels. Have a good one, folks.